All right, we live, everyone. We are live. Welcome back to the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, aka Starting Parker here, and we have a huge show for you guys today. We are reviewing this past weekend's E-Series Championship finale at Bristol, which saw a very chaotic championship finish. Unfortunately, Connor Zilisch losing on the championship, and we are also previewing this weekend's doubleheader, one of the very few times you will actually have not one, but two ARCA races happening in the same weekend. We have the main series division running at Kansas Speedway on Friday, and the West Series. We haven't heard about them in a while. They're on one of their long breaks to end the season out, but they are back at Madera Speedway on Saturday night. So one of the very few times you will see two ARCA races happening on the same weekend. So like I said, one of the very few times we will also be talking about all three ARCA Menard series on the same show. The main division, and you got your East and West division. So, like I said, action-packed episode tonight. We'll be going through all the fun. I'm going to go through my little intro, go to the beginning of every single podcast, and we will jump right into the action of Bristol. So, you guys know the drill. Follow me on social media, Starting Parker on Twitter. I appreciate all of you guys. We have just surpassed 6,000 followers on X, Twitter. Again, that's at Starting Parker. If you like what I tweet, I don't know why people do. They seem to do. I'm thankful for the following. Go give a follow there. Like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that bell for notifications so you guys never miss a podcast when I go live. We are less than 10, and I mean less than 10 subscribers away from 2,000. So if you like what you see here and you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. My goal is to get to 2,000 before the year is over, and we're literally less than 10 away. So that should be very easy to accomplish there. Super chats are open if you'd like to support the show financially. You don't have to, but you're always more than welcome to. And, of course, check out the Racing Experts for all NASCAR meter-related content. Whew. One of these days, I'm going to shorten up that intro. But anyway, guys, Bristol Motor Speedway, one of my personal favorite short tracks on the circuit, a personal favorite short track to a lot of you, I assume. It's a very fun track. It's treacherous. It's Bristol, baby. That's been the tagline the last few years. It's a lot of fun. The ARCA Menard series has, of course, been running there since 2020. Obviously, they didn't run there in the past. That was more of a K&N East series race. But since, of course, the ARCA Menard series, kind of merged with the K&N series, the ARCA Menard series has been running there since 2020. And you could definitely say ever since then, it's kind of been the Gibbs show. It has been the Gibbs show. I'm not sure. Did they win? Did they run there in 2020? Actually, they might have. I might have waited till 2021. But yeah, I'm gonna go look at the results real quick. I think they ran there in 2020, and I wasn't doing the show back in 2020, so I have to check real quick. Let's see here. Yeah, 2020. That's right. So Sam Mayer running 2020. And then ever since then, it has been the Joe Gibbs show. Ty Gibbs winning in 2021. Sammy Smith winning in 2022. And William Sawalich winning last year. So you could definitely say coming into this weekend, Joe Gibbs were the team to beat. And you could say kind of the remnants of the GMS ARCA team, the 28 team, were also the team to beat. So you kind of knew who your top two competitors were going to be in this race for sure. And, of course, the biggest storyline also coming into this race, the East Series Championship finale between Connor Zilisch and William Sawalich. A very hotly contested championship battle. My personal opinion, this was a lot more action-packed of a championship battle than I thought it would be. I actually predicted that William was going to win the championship and that Gio Ruggiero would actually be more involved in this championship battle. It kind of shocked me, especially after he went out and won the first race at wasn't New Smyrna, it was Pensacola. After Gio went out and won Pensacola, I figured Gio was actually going to be the guy to beat in this championship battle. And Connor Zilisch shut that up real quick, man. He just went on a tear over the summer he didn't win at Nashville, but he won at Flat Rock. He won at Iowa. And then he still finished second to William Sawalich at Milwaukee. That big crash at Dover, though, is what really separated the championship gap. So coming into this race, all Connor Zilisch had to do was finish 11th or better, no matter what the 18 did. All Connor Zilisch had to do was finish 11th or better, and he was the 2024 East Series champion. But that was not going to be no small task, as Bristol usually and did bring one of the biggest car counts of the season. Other than Daytona and Talladega, Bristol, I believe, had the second highest. You could say Phoenix, but that was a combo race. So you could say, yes, that had more, that actually had DNQs, but that was more due to the West Series showing up. The East Series doesn't actually have many of its own regular cars. But one of the top 5 car counts for 2024 at Bristol, 34 cars, a huge field of entries for this race. With many, oddball entries, like we had the return of Landon Lewis in the 97. We had late model driver Dawson Sutton driving the 71 for Team Hornaday Development. Let's see here. Who else did we have? We had the 82 of Corey Day, a second Pinnacle entry. We had Lawless Allen returning with the Rayon Brothers team. You had Logan Misaraka in a third Rev Racing entry. Eric Caudell was back driving his own car under Fast Track Racing. Jake Finch was driving his own car under the Finch Racing organization. So you definitely had a couple of oddball entries in there compared to our usual field of drivers. Unfortunately, during practice, we did lose one of them. The Peterson Motorsports team lost. They didn't lose a car, just pretty badly damaged. Mitch Gibson was in the 06. Peterson actually brought 2 cars to this race, the 0 of Nate Muller and the 06 of Mitch Gibson. Unfortunately, Mitch Gibson wrecked. I'm not sure if it was either practice or qualifying, but damaged the car up beyond repair to at least start the race. Luckily, by some chance, no appeared radiator damage, no appear engine damage, and no real suspension damage. Looks like it is just going to be cosmetic parts. So the Peterson cars are going to live to fight another day, but there's a good chance that Toyota probably done for the year, considering the next race is literally next weekend. So I'm sure they'll probably just bring another couple cars to that one, and we will see that Peterson Toyota return next year. So they withdrew that Toyota and renumbered the 0 back to the 06, and Nate Muller would just start and park the 06. That way they could still get the 06 points. But because Nate did run a lap in the 0, by technicality, the 0 was credited as 34th, simply just put as a did not start. If you run a practice lap, you are at least credited on the finishing order. You'll just be looked at as a did not start, but you'll still get owner points, if that makes sense. I'm just trying to explain that for the people who might not know how that works. Just because they withdrew from the race doesn't mean they get any actual credit. They still get a little bit of credit for at least attempting the race some sort. So, but looking at practice, obviously, we knew that the 18 and the 28 were going to be bringing their best stuff. I mean, arguably the best cars they got in the shop, the best motors they got. And unshockingly, they were the class of the field in practice. William Sawalich and Connor Zilisch were 1 and 2 by a full 10th over the field, which at Bristol is quite a bit. 1/10 at Bristol is a lot. Andres Brezzolaro was 3rd, Landon Lewis 4th, Chris Wright 5th, Corey Day 6th, LeVar Scott 7th, Gio Ruggiero down in 8th, Jake Finch 9th, and Christian Rose 10th. Like I said, all 34 cars did make a lap. Then coming into qualifying, again, we knew who it was probably going to be. And Connor Zilisch would actually get the edge on William Sawalich, winning the pole. But the field was still pretty tightly contested. The top 10 were within 2/10 of each other, so that's still not too bad, especially for the ARCA series. But Connor Zilisch, man, won the pole. All he had to do was just finish 11th or better, like I said. Now, coming into this race, and really has been the nature of a lot of the Bristol races the last couple years, has been lap traffic. It has definitely been one of the few nicks on this race, and it really just comes down to, like, you got the teams out there, like the 28 and the 18. No doubt in my mind, those two guys were running fresh Ilmor motors. Both of them were fresh Ilmor motors, whether they were rebuilt or they were just fresh off the line. But then you got teams out there who are running used Ilmors that might have 3 or 4 races on them. You have some teams running out there running the Spec Yates motor, which, again, is a good motor, but some people will say it just doesn't have the torque that the Ilmore's got. Then you got people out there running SB2s and, D3 Fords and R5 Dodges, which, those OEM motors known as the legacy motors do have a bigger plate. So they are not getting, basically it's just kind of a horsepower penalty, about 100. So those guys are way off the pace. And it's just at a track like this, you really notice it. And unfortunately, it shows on the practice charts. It showed on the qualifying charts. And there's really not much those guys can do about it. And ARCA gives you those horsepower penalties. And, when some teams just can't afford the fresh Ilmores like the top teams can, you will run into these types of problems. And unfortunately, it showed. It showed in the beginning of the race for sure. And I think one of the instances that was most notably pointed out was the number 93 of Brian Clubb. And I wanted to address this before we get into the actual race, was the lap traffic. Cars like the 06 of Muller, cars like the 93 of Brian Clubb. To their credit, it was their first time at Bristol. And this is, this track is no easy task. This track is no easy task. Same thing for the 31 of Tim Goulet, the 98 of Dale Shear, the 48 of Brad Smith. All those guys were, and I love them. I love those guys to death, but a lot of them were just way below the pace. They were. And the 93 was actually, it was a planned start in park. It was planned to enter to help Caleb Costner's team just get through the last race of the season so they could get that owner's point bonus. But the car was not actually set up for Bristol, to my knowledge. And I checked with people on the club team. It was actually still set up for Michigan many races back, which makes you think it was probably set up for Michigan at both the dirt races it ran at 2 and Milwaukee. And obviously, if it still had the Michigan gearing in it, I can understand why it was probably a lot slower than even some of the other lap cars. And, Brian was off after 13 laps, but unfortunately, he was out there a little too long, I feel like, and it got the attention on people on Twitter. And unfortunately, Brian Clubb got a lot of unnecessary hate. And, I hate that. He's a good guy. The club people are good people. And I felt bad for Brian. I felt bad he in that situation. But, I wish he would have just probably started the race. I know they wanted to try to outrun some cars. That was the goal, to try to outrun some of the other starting parks or run long enough in case somebody crashed out so the 93 wouldn't be in last place. But at the same time, I feel like they could have just avoided a lot of the social media trouble if they just would have started the race and pulled off immediately. You know what I mean? But that's just my opinion. Obviously, they had their plan, and they're going to follow their plan, and they should. But that's just my personal opinion. I wished they could have just avoided all the social media trouble and just started the race and immediately pulled off. And then people like Muller. Muller was in and out of the garage area. He kind of playing the game of cat and mouse that Peterson's kind of known for. He was off after 17 laps. Brad Smith was off after 12 laps. Dale Shear was off after 29 laps, and Tim Goulet was off after 45 laps. And those were kind of the cars that, had been kind of talked about. Can these guys keep up? And again, it's not a knock against any of these guys, because all of these guys are either running very old Ilmores, Yates, or OEM legacy motors that have a horsepower penalty, and they're going as fast as they can. Brad literally will tell me, like, if I had better tires, maybe I could pick up half a second, but I literally can't go any faster around the track with his OEM. Same thing with Goulet. They're like, I can't really go any faster with my OEM motor. And maybe, like I said, better tires, but, they're telling me this is how fast I can go, and I got to believe them. So, yeah, one of the things I did want to address was the lap traffic, but at the end of the day, what can we really do about it? What can we really do about it? The only thing I could say is maybe going forward is, if they're going to be off the pace, then maybe just try to get them off the track a little earlier. But that's not my discretion. That's not my ruling. That's not my responsibility. But I just hate it because it unfortunately caused a crap storm on social media about it. And I just wanted to address that first. But So anyway, the race started. I wanted to get the lap traffic stuff out of the way first before we talked about the actual race itself. And yeah, I felt bad for those guys, but at the same time, if you're too slow at a track like Bristol, you're going to have a long day, and it's probably just best to pull off. But we started the race, and unfortunately, not 4 laps in, Connor Zilisch got the jump on Sawalich. And unfortunately, 4 laps in, we had our first accident today on the backstretch. The backstretch seemed to be where all the incidents really took place. Poor Dawson Sutton. We had literally just mentioned him. He was driving for the Hettinger Racing Team. And unfortunately, it looked like he got turned off of turn 2, slapped the inside wall, and unfortunately did enough damage that the car was done. And I felt bad because this car was 7th quickest in qualifying. It was not going to probably be a winning car, but Dawson probably had a chance at a top 10, top 5. This was going to be one of the more competitive winning cars probably. If something, like I said, happened. So the fact that happened to poor Dawson, I felt bad for him. Looking at it on a replay, it actually looks like maybe he didn't get turned and he just lost it. But either way, a tough break that we lost one of our good cars very early in the race. And we went over the mentioning of lap traffic. By the time all of those guys had either been pulled off by ARCA or just parked it themselves, we were down to 27 cars on the track. But we get back going green on lap 11. This time, William Sawalich gets the jump on Connor Zilisch. But Connor was sticking there right with him, man. And they were 1 and 2. They were pulling away from the field. We had our next caution. I'm going to be saying this a lot. Next caution. We had our next caution on lap 20. This time with Logan Misaraka, Amber Balkin, and Tony Breidinger. One of the very few times we actually see all 3 ladies involved in the crash. That was actually kind of, I'm like, oh boy, all 3 of the women involved in the same crash. Unfortunately, this would be the last time that Logan and Amber would get together. We'll get to that in a second. But I just thought how ironic that is that the 3 ladies in the field all end up in the exact same crash. It wasn't even really Tony's fault. She was just right behind the crash and had nowhere to go. But I still thought that was kind of funny. So we get the race going again. And this time, Connor Zilisch, he gets the jump back on William Sawalich, and he gets back into the lead. We run another 15 laps. DL Wilson has a quick spin, get back going green again, and then we have the big moment of the race. William Sawalich had gotten the lead back. They were kind of trading the lead on every restart pretty much. But William Sawalich had gotten the lead back, actually taken it on the green flag restart, not just gotten the jump. Nearly wrecked each other. I mean, these guys were racing each other clean, but they were also racing each other hard. And I like that. I like that they are racing each other hard. But William got the lead. They were lapping through traffic. And unfortunately, the deciding factor of this race came on lap 64 when Amber Balkin and Logan Misaraka in turn 3 got into each other. Logan hit the wall, rear end first. And unfortunately, as she was sliding down the track, Connor Zilisch, just bad timing. You talk about the worst timing, gets clipped by her. And that's it, man. Connor Zilisch badly damaged on the right side. And the car, you could probably say, was totaled. The rear end housing was probably bent. I'm not sure the extent of the damage, but I would imagine the rear end housing was probably bent. Something in the rear suspension had to have been broken. And they just didn't want to try to, they could have tried to repair it. I wonder if they did, and it was just too much damage, especially considering the race itself was pretty short. The race itself is was too long. They only had 150 laps, and they probably couldn't have gotten the car fixed to the point. But I thought it was actually kind of funny. We watched it on TV, and it looked like Logan had simply just hit the wall. We actually didn't even know that Connor Zilisch was involved until about 4 or 5 seconds later. The broadcast had picked it up, and we're like, "Oh God, it's oh crap, it's Zilisch. How bad's the damage?" And then the camera cuts to it, and it's like, "Oh man, he's done." The entire rear quarter panel was ripped away, and you saw that right rear tire was pointed a different direction. That car was done. That car was done, and it's just like, man, what a heartbreak. Well, what an absolute heartbreak for Connor Zilisch. It wasn't even his fault, just wrong place, wrong time. That could have been William Sawalich, you know? That could have been William Sawalich. You know, there was nothing Connor's spotter could have done. But you just got to wonder, like, why were they racing out there so hard? Why were Amber and Logan hugging each other so hard into the corners? And I don't know, man. You know, you could also just chalk it up to inexperience on Logan's part. She doesn't have all that many starts in the series. I don't think she has more than 5, 10, maybe even just 15 starts. She doesn't have a big load of experience. And coming into a track like this at Bristol in a good car. I mean, let's remember, she was in a Rev Racing car, was Logan Misiraka. This was not a bad car that she was in. So she was going to be competitive, just based especially off her car, number one. And it's a shame. It's a shame. And, you know, you can't chalk it up to 100% blame on Misiraka either. I'm sure the 28 team probably does. But, you know, unfortunately, you just have to call that a bad racing deal. Really. I mean, I don't think the 9 and the 22 meant to do that on purpose, obviously. And that she didn't mean to get into the 28 on purpose. It's just one of them bad racing deals. I think that's honestly the best way to call it, is that this was just an unfortunate racing deal. And Connor Zilisch, unfortunately, had to pay the price for it. And that was it. You know, there was no saving this championship. Now, it was not over 100% yet. You know, obviously, he still had a little bit of a lead. So if something happened to William Sawalich, like an engine failure or he crashed himself, it's not like the 28 was completely out of this yet. But I think it was kind of in the minds of everyone, Williams probably not going to have an engine failure, and there's a good chance he's probably not going to get wrecked. So, but it kind of sucks that the championship, you know, it's kind of like the 2022. I kind of go back to the 2022 ARCA championship, you know, when it came down to Daniel Dye and Nick Sanchez, only for Daniel Dye to have a mechanical issue early in the last race. And we didn't really get to have the championship battle that we all wanted. And I kind of attribute that to this one as well, because we were having a fun time with the 10 and the 20, with the 10, the 18 and the 28. We were having a fun time out there watching them battle. And just like that, it's taken away. And unfortunately, we didn't get a proper conclusion to that. And that sucks. That really does suck for Connor Zilisch. But that retired both of those cars. You know, ironically enough, Amber Balkan would actually be the next yellow. So Amber Balkan was done for the day. TV pointed out a really kind of rough statistic for Amber Balkan. Apparently, she's gone through 6 different crew chiefs this season. That's got to be some sort of record, man. 6 different crew chiefs. Now, you think sometimes over a NASCAR season, that's fine, but I mean, we're only in a 20-race ARCA season, and she's gone through 6 different crew chiefs. Man, that's rough. That's really rough to go through 6 different crew chiefs. And she wrecks a lot. I mean, Amber wrecks a lot. That's what else can you say? Whether it's her fault, whether it's someone else's fault, I don't know. Amber Balkan just seems to wreck a lot. I don't know. I remember back in 2022, she wrecked a lot of that 30 team. When she drove the Mark Rett 30 car, she wrecked a lot there too. So I don't know, man. At some point, what is it, the team or is it the driver? I don't know. I like Amber Balkan. I've met her a few times. She's a nice lady, but at the same time, like, if you're going through 6 different crew chiefs and you've wrecked this much this year, sometimes you just got to look into the mirror and being like, who's the problem here? And she wrecked in testing, even though that wasn't even her fault. That was not actually her fault, but still. But it did point in a new factor into this race. That was Landon Lewis, and that was a nice surprise. And, Landon Lewis, he's kind of been, you could kind of say Landon Lewis is kind of one of the forgotten drivers. I mean, this was a guy who abruptly left the Bruce Cook team in 2023. He was driving the number 17. He was leading the championship, I think. He was either leading the championship or he was second in points in the West Series, and he just abruptly left. He left the team. Caden Honeycutt, I remember Caden Honeycutt took over the 17. They still won the Owners' Championship last year, but he just abruptly left. and he made only 1 or 2 more appearances in the 97. And we have not seen Landon Lewis all season up until this race. Now, he is a Team Hornaday development driver. He has been driving for Kevin Harvick in the Cars Tour. So it's not like this guy is not driving anything, but it's just very strange how this guy was probably well on his way to winning. I would easily say, oh, he works. I thought he drove for the Cars Tour team as well. But he works with KHI Development. We'll just put it like that. So he's with good people, with Ron Hornaday and Kevin Harvick. He works with good people and drives with good people. But it's just so weird to see. It's such a weird story that I feel like we never really got the answer to, that Landon Lewis just abruptly left Bruce Cook's team last year. But besides the point, he comes in with this 2017 CR7 Motorsports, one of the better stories of the Truck Series season. And they also have a part-time ARCA team for Jason Kitzmiller, Grant Enfinger, and Landon Lewis. And it's just really good to see this team. I mean, they only come out a couple times a year. And with Landon Lewis, his first start of the season, being this competitive, I was very shocked, but I was also very pleasantly happy to see it. And I can tell you right now, man, when ARCA Twitter saw that, man, there's actually a battler for the 28 and the 18, people rose up. The Landon Lewis fan base came alive. So did I. But Landon Lewis actually stayed on the outside and took the lead. We actually had a major lead change in this race. More to say about the Cup race too. But he actually took the lead on lap 75 and would hold it. He actually held it for quite a while. He would hold it for 53 laps. We had a few cautions in between. We had Michael Maples, who unfortunately, he had a pretty big crash. Tore up the front of his car. It's been a rough couple of races for Maples. Obviously, it's his first full season in ARCA, and you could say he's definitely learning the highs and the lows. That's for sure. Hopefully that car is repairable, but I doubt we'll see that car return at Toledo. I'm sure they'll either repair it very quickly or they'll give him another one for Toledo. But that unfortunately was the end of his night. And then we had the halfway break. Came back to green after the halfway break. And again, Landon Lewis, he manages to keep the lead from William Sawalich. Very impressive. And he really used that outside line to his advantage. The 18 was also good on the bottom, but the 97 could really close him hard coming up the corner, and the 18 just couldn't get the bite. We had a couple more accidents. Marco Andretti, it was a rough day for Marco Andretti, man. He hit the wall off of turn 4, and he actually missed the truck race too. So not only did he DNQ the truck race, he crashed in the ARCA race later that night. So, yeah, poor Marco Andretti, man. His ARCA NASCAR tenure really has not been what I personally thought it would be, and I doubt it's been what he thought it would be either. It really has not been a good NASCAR tenure for Marco Andretti, and I hope it gets better. I like Marco. He's a good guy. I met him. I met Marco Andretti for the first time 15 years ago. I met him when I was 8 years old when he was driving the Venom Energy Indy car. He's a good guy. He's a cool guy. But, yeah, just wish he would have some better luck and have some better runs. But then they were battling through the field. Andres Perez nearly lost it on one of the restarts. Give a call to Tyler Reif. He was driving the number 23 for Joe Ferre. He's from the West Series. He really brought it to these guys. He really brought it to these guys as well. As much as Landon Lewis brought it to the leaders, you can also say that Tyler Reif, man, he was no slouch in this race, and especially for the Joe Ferre team, a team that's primarily a West Series team, to come out here and run up against these main series guys. A very, very impressive performance. Very, very impressive performance. Unfortunately, on one of the other restarts, the 97 just didn't go. Meaning Sawalich got the lead back, and then we would get one of the bigger, arguably funnier moments of the race. And I felt bad for Greg Van Alst. The guy just can't seem to buy a break. He's back down to a part-time schedule. He's back down to a part-time schedule after skipping some races. He will be in this weekend's race at Kansas, but he will not be at Toledo. He was turned by the 32 of Christian Rose on the backstretch. Like I said, the backstretch seemed to be the place of accidents. But yeah, heavily damaging the front part of the car. Yeah, just, and Greg wasn't even really having the best day too. He was kind of mingling around 11th, 12th all night. But still, being clean out there, and then just to get taken out like that, that sucks for him. But he did give us one of the meme-worthy moments of the race, and that was as the team. Sorry, I'm getting my wording wrong here. As the field was coming by, well, Greg Van Alst lets Christian Rose. He's number one, but I'll let you know, guys, he did not use this finger. And I cannot use the finger that Greg Van Alst used on Christian Rose. But I'll give you a chance to think what finger Greg Van Alst gave to Christian Rose. I can't use it on YouTube, but it was not this one. It was not this number one. It was a different number one. Now, you could say the same thing. Some people saying he cleared himself on Rose. You could probably go both ways. It's Bristol. When you're coming up off the corners, you will wash into each other. It does happen. So you could go both ways on it. But yeah, Greg Van Alst giving us one of the bigger meme moments of the weekend with his number one sign to Christian Rose. Thought that was kind of funny. On this restart, though, William Sawalich was actually lost the lead back to Landon Lewis. So it's like, man, we might have a chance at this. Landon Lewis gets the lead. He's holding it again. We have yet another crash. I mean, this was at the point where we were crashing. That felt like every single lap. And the next lap, we have Chris Wright, the guy who crashes almost every damn week. He crashed. He actually got hit by his own teammate. Kind of another rough race for Venturini. But Chris Wright, he crashed again. He kept going somehow. Got going green again. We had another crash, this time for the between Tyler Reif and Christian Rose. And again, really good battling between the 18 and the 28, or the 18 and the 97. The 97 hugging the 97 hugging down that 18, and the 18 just can't get that forward bite off the corner that he needs. Really, really smart driving by Landon Lewis. And again, this is also a very, very young kid. So the fact that he has this kind of racecraft and he's able to hold the 18 down on corner entrance and corner exit, not allowing the 18 to get that bite off the corner, that's how he was able to keep the lead. And that was also very impressive. And I can really appreciate when you see these young kids with so much racecraft. And I like that because, me and a lot of people preach that you don't see that very often. It's just, I'm just going to run into him. I'm just going to move him out of the way. No, I like to see when they can get side by side and the guy hugs him down to the point where he can't get by him. Maybe even if he has a slower car than the guy behind him, but he's making it harder for the guy to pass simply because of racecraft. I can really, really appreciate that. But we came back from the Christian Rose, Tyler Reif crash, and William Sawalich, it's like he had a statement to prove. Even though Landon Lewis got the jump on the restart, it's just like the 18 turned it up. He physically got past back the lead. Then we had yet another caution, unfortunately, for the 95 of Andrew Patterson. Unfortunately, a hard right front tire crash for the Man Motorsports team. So it's like, God dang, we lost quite a few cars in those last couple of yellows. But it set up a green-white checkered finish, and, I was kind of hoping, I was kind of having my fingers crossed. Like, I didn't mind if Sawalich won. We knew he was going to win the championship, but I was kind of hoping, man, if he's going to win the championship, I hope the 97 can at least win the race. But Sawalich got the great jump, and there's really not much Landon Lewis could have done. And William Sawalich wins at Bristol. The 18 goes 4 straight wins for the season as a whole. William Sawalich won at Nashville, he won at Milwaukee, and he won at Bristol. So I believe 3 wins on the season for East. And in terms of the season, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is 8 wins on the season for William Sawalich, and 3 overall in East. So, and of course, by virtue of the win, He wins the Drivers' Championship, and Matt Ross, who took over ownership of the team after we unfortunately lost Coy Gibbs, he won the Owners' Championship. So a sweep of the day, you could say, for the 18 team, winning the race, Drivers' Championship, and the Owners' Championship. Obviously, heartbreak for Connor Zilisch. He mentioned a very classy, he gave a very, very classy interview. Basically, he said there's a lot of things I could say right now, but it probably wouldn't be beneficial to say them. And I'm not really sure what else he could have said. It wasn't his fault. I don't, maybe he could have said something. Maybe he was going to say something about Logan, but at the end of the day, Logan was out there and they just made a mistake. I'm not sure. Connor can be upset, and he probably should be upset. But at the same time, racing happens, man. Mistakes happen, and it just sucks that it costed Zilisch. But he ended up 26th. Then 2 years in a row, the number 28 Pinnacle team come into Bristol with a shot at the championship, and Bristol nets them a DNF. So that really sucks for the Pinnacle Racing Group. In terms of the rest of the field, Landon Lewis, 2nd, LeVar Scott, 3rd, Andres Perez-Delar, 4th. One of the better performances for the short track series for the Siegel team, double top 5. Dean Thompson, 5th. He was the highest Venturini car. Tyler Reif, 6th. Corey Day, the 2nd Pinnacle car, was 7th. Jake Finch, 8th. Lawless Allen, 9th. And Andy J was 10th. And due to the high attrition in the race, we actually had a couple of good underdog finishes. We had Zachary Tinkle driving for Andy Hillenberg in 11th, Tony Breidinger in 12th, Chris Wright 13th, Eric Caudell for his own team mixed with Andy Hillenberg was 14th. Gio Rogero, he had some issues late in the race as well, just a very, very disappointing. I think you can honestly say a disappointing season for him. He was 15th. Tim Richmond, he also had a tire failure. He could have finished better. He was 16th. Cody Dennison, who actually wrecked in practice, but they got the car repaired. He nursed it home to 17th, and Alex Clubb was the remaining car finishing the race in 19th. Andrew Patterson DNF'd in 18th. Christian Rose 20th. Greg Manels 21st. Marco Andretti 22nd. DL Wilson 23rd. Michael Maples 24th. Amber Balkin 26th. As we mentioned before, Connor Zilisch 26th. Where Amber Balkin was 25th, sorry. Logan Misraka 27th, Tim Goulet 28th, Dale Shear 29th, Nate Muller 30th, Brian Clubb 31st, Brad Smith 32nd, Dawson Sutton 33rd, and Mitch Gibson, like I said, the DNS was credited with 34th. So, it's a lot to get through, but yeah, I definitely thought that the race was, a lot of people crapped on it, and I think a lot of unnecessary hate. Mainly coming from people like Landon Huffman. I chose not to get into that argument. Obviously, Landon's entitled to his opinion. It's not the first time that Landon Huffman has commented on the ARCA series like this. He's entitled to believe what he wants. I'm entitled to believe what I want. I'm not saying he's entirely wrong. This was not ARCA's strongest race at Bristol. I'm not going to deny that. I thought last year's race personally was better than this one. I would kind of put this race in the middle, maybe 5.5 out of 10. And that's mainly just due to the stuff that we saw between the 97 and the 18. I thought that was really fun watching the 97, who clearly does not have a better car than the 18, but using his racecraft and his knowledge, being able to keep him behind him. I thought that was a lot of fun. And I felt like that actually added a lot of entertainment to the ARCA race. I mean, we didn't see that in the Cup race, that's for sure. We didn't see that in the Cup race. So at least ARCA can hold their hat to that. But I don't know, man. I felt like that the tweets that made about ARCA were, again, it's just so easy to hate on this series. It is. It really is. And, people are like, well, why doesn't this series have TV coverage? Well, I don't know. Go talk to the series owners. Well, go talk to the Cars Tour owners why this series is not on TV. I don't know. Don't blame ARCA for not being on TV. It's like, what do you want them to do about it? Go to Cars Tour owners and get your series on TV. Flow racing is great. I'm not going to deny I love flow racing. I have flow racing. It's great. But I don't understand the hate. I mean, was it their best performance? No. I'm going to say it right now. That was not the best ARCA race at Bristol. Last year was better. It was. But I still wouldn't call it terrible. I wouldn't call it terrible. I told you, I think a fair score for this ARCA race is probably 5.5, maybe 6. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. I put it right in the middle. The stuff with the 97 and the 18 was fun. The stuff at the beginning with the 28 and the 18 was fun. But I agree, all the mayhem, all the stupid crashes, yeah, it did take it down a couple notches. But I still can't call it a terrible race. I wouldn't. I mean, what I say was, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I feel like there was just, once again, so much hate on a series that, it's just so easy to hate it. It's so easy to hate the series. Is the series perfect? No, it's not. The ARCA series is not perfect. It's not been perfect in a long time. I wouldn't say it's never been perfect, but it hasn't been perfect in a long time. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm just a guy who talks about it. What am I going to do? I'm just giving you guys my opinion on it. But I just felt like it's just so easy to hate on the race. But I agree. There's some takes out there that I agree with, but there's also a lot of takes out there that I did not agree with. So, but I think a fair score is a 5.5. I'm going to stick with my 5.5 grade for the race. The E Series standings coming out of this race. Final results were William Sawalich winning the championship by Connor Zilisch over 12 points. Gio Ruggiero was third. Zachary Tinkle was fourth. And the final spot, the top 5 that get to go to the banquet, you talk about close, D.L. Wilson got the position by Cody Dennison by 1 point. 1 point is what separated D.L. Wilson from Cody Dennison. So Cody Dennison should be able to go to the banquet by virtue of a top 10 points finish in the main division, but will not get a top 5 points credit for the E Series championship. So that sucks. Was hoping Cody could get there too, but good for DL. Michael Maples was 7th. There were only 7 full-time drivers in the 7 full-time drivers in the East Series for 2024. And obviously, Matt Ross won the Owners' Championship over Mark Webb, the owners of the 18 and 28 organizations. So, yeah, that was Bristol. Not the best, like I said, not the best Bristol race, but I can't call it bad. And I can't call it great. I just put it right in the middle. And I look forward to this race next year. The Bristol ARCA races are usually some of the most fun and weirdest races of the season. But like I said, it's just so easy to hate on the series because they have a TV deal. Not everybody has flow. Not every Cars Tour race is a banger. I'm going to admit that right there. I watch some of those races. I don't think they're banger races that everyone says they are. It's good racing, but wouldn't call it phenomenal. So, but yeah, let's move on to this weekend stuff. We will start off with the West Series. I'll start off with the West Series and end with the main series. So the ARCA Menard Series West returns after a long stay. I mean, man, it's been a long time since we've actually seen the ARCA Menard Series West. They have kind of some deep schedule gaps in between the year. But they are returning to Madera Speedway, a track that they had not actually ran that many times. Madera Speedway had not been a fixture on the ARCA Menard Series West schedule for quite some time. They returned there last year for the first time, I think, since the 2000s or the mid-2010s. Like I said, 2009. Sorry, 2009. I had to look it up real quick. I thought it was 2015, but I think that's Shasta. But yeah, 2009 was the last time we were at Madera, and then we returned there last year. And now it's kind of a mainstay on the schedule, and that's good. It's always kind of fun seeing different racetracks on the schedule. Last year's race saw 19 cars. This one, 17. Obviously, car counts Car counts have definitely not necessarily been on the rise, you could say, in the West Series, which does kind of suck. 17 cars for this race. We will go down the entry list as follows. We will start off Robbie Keenely. Good to see Robbie Keenely back in the ARCA series after a couple of races off due to some engine problems. He is actually from Madera, California, so this is actually a home track for him. Good old Todd Souza in the 3, Eric Nascimento in the 4, Sean Hingorani in the 5, Henry Barton in the 6. So how about that? That's a random entry, another Jerry Pitts entry. Takuma Koga, who will actually be doing double duty this weekend. We'll get to that in a second. Michael Killen Jr. in a second Jan's Towing entry. Kyle Keller, of course, in the 12. Tyler Reif in the 13. Jack Wood in the 16. Eric Johnson Jr. in the 19. Ethan Nascimento in the 21. Jason Giannini. Okay, sorry, I wanted to get the pronunciation right. Jason Giannini in the 23. Trevor Huddleston in the 50. Rip Michaels or Michaels in the 71, a new driver in the 71 car, not Nick Janitis. Kyle Wismer in the 77, and David Smith in the 05. So a decent field of cars. And like I said, Madera is not one of the bigger tracks on the circuit. Madera is a third mile. So, only having 17 cars is definitely not a problem, especially at a third mile track. Of 17 cars is more than enough. The story of the West Series season in 2024 has been the battle between Tyler Reif and Sean Hingorani. It was great to see Todd and Kelly Souza finally get some wins on the book after going winless for so long. And Sean Hingorani trying to avenge his championship after dominating last year in the Venturini 15 car. This year, he's been shopping around to quite a few different rides. Started off the season with Hattori, then went to Joe Ferre, then went back to Venturini for a couple of races, and then has been primarily driving the 5 for Jerry Pitts. He will be driving the 5 for Jerry Pitts, I believe, for the next 2 races, and then we'll be driving the 15 at Phoenix. I think so. I think that's how it's working. But yeah, Tyler Reif has won the last 2 races. In fact, Sean Hingorani and Tyler Reif have combined to win the last 4. Tyler Reif won at Tri-City and Shasta, and then Sean Hingorani swept both races at Irwindale. So they are definitely the favorites coming into this race. Caden Honeycutt won last year's race in the 17. He is not in this year's event, so you could definitely say this race is a lot more open. Right now, the championship in the West Series, with just 3 races to go, is Tyler Reif leads Sean Hingorani by just 7 points. It is very close. Very, very close. In the championship right now, Jack Wood is 3rd, minus 46. Trevor Huddleston is 4th, minus 50. And Kyle Keller is 5th, minus 57. So the battle from 3rd to 5th is also pretty closely contested right now as well. Everybody will move up in the spot since Nick Janitis is not in the field. He will drop down to 10th, and everybody else will move up a position. Pretty entertaining battle overall in the West Series right now. It's hard to judge really who's going to have the edge in the championship. I just fear, man, no matter how well that Todd and Kelly Souza have that car prepped, Sean Hingorani is going to have a good car at Phoenix driving for Venturini. And, we've seen that race. That race is probably going to bring close to 35 cars. And I don't know, man. In those combo races, that 13 struggles. Tyler Reif does his best. He can run in the top 10, but those Venturini cars are very mighty. So I hope that Tyler Reif is able to, I want Tyler Reif to win this championship. I do. I want to see the Souzas win. It's the feel-good story, but, it's just going to be so hard to beat Sean Hingorani, man, when he's in that Venturini car come Phoenix. In terms of this race, it's on Flow Racing, by the way. Flow Racing Saturday night. So if you have nothing to watch on a Saturday night, the Xfinity race will be over by then from Kansas. It is Saturday night. Like I said, on Flow Racing now keep in mind, this is the West Coast, so it'll be a little bit later, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Pacific. So obviously it'll be on a little bit later. But if you have time, tune into it. First place course, $5,000. Last place, $1,150. Top 20 bonus for flow racing, extra $200 there, and $12,750 with all contingency awards possible. Like I said, this is the second race officially under the ARCA Menard Series West banner. Wide open slate, like we mentioned earlier, with Caden Honeycutt not running. And I think it's safe to say one of those two guys is going to win. So I'm going to go with Tyler Reif as my pick for that race. I'm going to go with Tyler Reif as my pick for Madera. And there's not a whole lot to talk about the West Series right now. It's kind of hard, when they race so little. It's like the East Series, man. You're like, oh, yeah, that's right, the West Series. I haven't seen them in a while. It has been. It's been a while. It's been over a month since we have seen the West Series. But, obviously we got to talk about them. And I'm still hoping Tyler Reif can pull off the championship. And Tyler Reif is my pick for this weekend's race at Madera. And my underdog pick for the race, you know what? Tell you what, let's go with Eric Nascimento. You never know sometimes at these races. Eric's a good qualifier. So we'll go with Eric Nascimento as my underdog pick. Yeah. Now we transition to Kansas Speedway this Friday. I will be there. This will be my last ARCA race of the season. Obviously, I'll be still helping out Brad Smith on the number 48 team. Looking forward to that one as well. The good news is for Kansas this weekend, we are still on a Friday again, and we have a decent-sized entry list. The biggest entry list since the Kansas race in 2022. 27 cars, a pretty good-sized entry list for Kansas. And I'll tell you, for the days that Kansas used to have only 18, 19, 20 cars, man, those were some bad ones. I'm not going to lie. And to see the car counts climb back up to, 25, 27 cars for Kansas, just having more bodies out there helps a lot. But, outside of the entry list, one of the bigger talking points I feel like has been General Tire. Now, for some strange reason, the last 2 years, General Tire has had issues with their tires. Now, 2022 was not terrible, but 2023 was bad. Jesse Love actually blew a tire in last year's race. Tire wear was pretty bad. People were cording tires, and the attrition for last year's race was just off the charts. I mean, it was weird. Last year's race literally saw 2 cars on the lead lap, which for an ARCA race at Kansas was not normal. The attrition rate was really, really high. Tony Breidinger got third. Tony Breidinger got a third. Tony Breidinger got third. Cody Coughlin was in the race. He had a fuel pump go bad, if I remember correctly. Jesse Love crashed out. Who else crashed? I mean, both of the Rev Racing cars had mechanical issues. Trying to pull up the results real quick. But yeah, Frankie Muniz, he crashed out. Andres Perez crashed out. Dean Thompson, he had to pit under green. Christian Rose had to pit under green. Jake Finch had to pit under green. I think LeVar Scott even had to pit under green. There were so many issues on track. Carson Quapple was in the 28 last year. He finished second to Connor Mosak, who won in the JGR 18 car, but it was so weird, man. Everybody was really slow on lap times by the end of the race with how many tire issues and how slow everybody was going. It was a weird race. It really was. So hopefully General Tire brought a better tire to this year's ARCA race in the fall one. But we'll go over the entry list. It's like we usually do again, top to bottom, starting off with the 2 of Andres Perez de Lara, the 6 of LeVar Scott, a third, once again, another Rev Racing entry, Sebastian Arias in the number 9, Christopher Tate in the 10, Cody Dennison in the 11, Takuma Koga, yes, as you heard mentioned earlier, he will be doing double duty, be running the ARCA race at Kansas on Friday, and will be running the ARCA West race at Madera on Saturday. Chris Wright in the 15, Marco Andretti in the 17, Tanner Gray in his final start of the season for JGR in the 18, of course, as William Sawalich is not old enough yet to run this race. Giro Ruggiero, he'll be making his Kansas debut in the 20. Amber Balkan in the 22. Tony Breidinger in the 25. Connor Zilisch in the 28. The 31 right now doesn't have a driver listed, but I presume it's going to be Rita Goulet. It's kind of what I've been told, that Rita Goulet will be making her Kansas debut. Christian Rose in the 32. Lawless Allen in the 33. Both Greg Van Alst entries for this race. Isaac Johnson in the 34, Greg Van Alst in the 35. Brad Smith in the 48, of course, will be on that car. Isabella Robusto will be making her Kansas debut in the 55. Andy Jankowiak in the 73. Mandy Chick, who is from Kansas, so not shocked that she's at this one, in the 74. A second Pinnacle Racing Group entry with the 82. Jason Kitzmiller in the 97. Michael Maples in the 99. Alex Clubb in the 03, and Kevin Hinkle, another Kansas native, will be in the 06. Whew, man, those entry lists are long. If you compare this race to the spring, we were running under very, very overcast conditions in this race in the spring. And so, yeah, lots of grip, lots of high line racing more than the low line. And one of the more shocking outcomes, in my opinion, of the season, the 18, man, he was the real class of the field. He was murdering the field. And yet in that last run, Connor Mosak kept up with the 18, caught him, and passed him. I'll never forget, I was shocked. A lot of people on pit road were shocked when the 18 car actually got passed competitively for the lead at a track like Kansas, where you'd think that they would be unstoppable. So the 28 team is looking to go back-to-back. Now, Connor Zilisch, he does have experience at Kansas. He was at the Kansas Open Test earlier this year, and that will be to his advantage. He knows this track already. He's got laps. So, hey, he won his debut at Michigan. Can he win his debut at Kansas? There's a pretty good chance he will, but we'll find out. But, yeah. Definitely one of the more, again, I would say wide open races. The 18 is going to be a factor. The 28 is going to be a factor. But I wouldn't rule out some of the other guys like Corey Day. Never rule him out. Wouldn't rule out LeVar Scott as well. Wouldn't rule out Gio either. You never know what he could bring. And even Lawless Allen. Lawless Allen ran really good there in the spring, and Rayom has really figured out this ARCA program. So, don't count him out. Isaac Johnson, same. Don't count him out either. So I would say there's a couple of open entries for this race in terms of who could probably win, depending on if the 18 and 28 maybe have trouble. But, I'll be curious. Be really curious to see who wins this one. Now, it is on Friday before the truck race. We'll be running before the truck race. In terms of starting parks for the race, probably the only one that'll be parking early will be us. The 48, obviously, Brad's just trying to finish out the season with his bad motor. So I don't know how many laps we're going to run, but I'm going to tell you guys it probably ain't going to be very many. Other than that, I think the remaining 26 cars will probably end up going the distance. The Peterson car, Kevin Hinkle, he goes the distance. All four Hillenberg cars will be going the distance. So, yeah. Pretty good size amount of full field entries, and that's always good to see at a track like Kansas as well. So, in terms of who's going to win this race, winner's pick, I think it's safe to say I'm going to go with the comfortable pick. I'm going to go with Tanner Gray. I'm going to go with Tanner Gray getting the win. For an underdog pick, let's go with Lawless Allen. I think Lawless Allen is a fair underdog pick, but I'm going to go comfortable and just pick Tanner Gray. Pick Tanner Gray. Now, the main series standings coming into this race, obviously, Andres Perez de Lara can clinch the championship this weekend over LeVar Scott, a current 53-point lead. Is it the most impressive ARCA championship? Not necessarily. I wish he could have won a race this year. Who knows? Maybe he'll pull one off at Kansas. Who knows? I hope he does. But, yeah, LeVar Scott is second. He's kind of settled into his position. Chris Wright will finish third. Tony Breidinger and Christian Rose, they have a real good battle right now for fourth in points. Tony right now is fourth. She is 2 points ahead of Christian Rose. Amber Balkan has kind of settled into sixth. Cody Dennison is seventh, which is pretty impressive considering he missed 2 races. He missed Daytona and Phoenix due to not being quick enough. Michael Maples 8th, Alice Club 9th. William Sawalich is actually 10th in points. He's actually 10th in points despite missing 5 races, which is kind of funny. And JGR is absolutely dominating the Owners' Championship right now, so there's no even need to talk about that as well. But, yeah. So, yeah, that is the ARCA race at Kansas. Again, I will be there on the 48. I will be there on the 48 car as usual. Again, I probably won't be running very many laps, but, you know, anytime you get to work on one of these old school ARCA cars and you get to work for a guy like Brad Smith who has seen everything, heard everything, and I'll admit to you guys, I know we're only going to be out there running a couple laps and pulling it in. So then you ask yourself, well, why do you do it, Colby? Well, why do you do it? Why do you put yourself through all that work, you know, if you're always going to run a couple laps? And I'll be honest with you guys, it's the stories. Sitting down with Brad Smith, to me, there is nothing more fun than sitting down in Brad's trailer on a stack of tires, eating a bologna sandwich while he tells racing stories from the past. That is what I live for. That is so much fun. It's like when you work for Wayne Peterson and you want to tell him, like, tell me a war story. Wayne will just go off about the wars, and it is so entertaining. So, like I said, in all honesty, I do this for the stories. The stories that every weekend has a new story, and just sitting down with Brad and telling stories. It's just, he's a wealth of knowledge, and it's just so great. That's why I do it. That's why I do it. It's just being able to talk to Brad, hear some stories, and we get to have some fun. It's just a lot of fun. I will not be at Toledo the next weekend, the final ARCA race. I will not be there. In terms of what 2025 looks like for me, well, I'm going to tell you guys, I got something pretty freaking cool in store for 2025. I can't really reveal too much about it, but in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks is when it'll be announced, and you guys are going to like it. You guys are going to like it a lot. So I'm excited to get that announced soon. But, yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend. If you're going to be there in Kansas, come say hi. Come say hi. Not too hard to find. Just look for the 6'4" mulleted redhead with a mullet. I stand out like a sore thumb, or stick out like a sore thumb, so I'm not too hard to find. So if you're in the Kansas area, come say hi. Come say hi. I always like seeing people who recognize me from the show, and just fellow ARCA fans in general who love to say hi. So we also do have some more news to talk about real quick. Presley Sora, you guys might know him, sim to reality guy. He'll be in the 31 next weekend at Toledo. Let's see here. What else notes did I have? Any more notes? I think that might be it. But yeah. Oh, the Kansas race. When is it on? That's right. Gotta talk about the entry blank real quick. So the Kansas race is on Friday. Now, it's a little early. It is a little early. It is before the truck race, of course. So we're on. We have to be on a little earlier than expected. 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Central Time on FS1. The Reese's 150. In my personal opinion, my favorite racing name, the Reese's 150. The trophy is a giant peanut butter cup. I don't know who wouldn't want that trophy in their collection. 10,000 for first. 27th is 1,450. 14,600 with all contingency awards. And like I said, it's just a one-day show for the ARCA guys. No need for a 2-day show when it comes to something like this. And like I said, just excited to be back with Brad Smith. And I hope next year we'll get the engines fixed and we will be able to be back to running more full races. So, wow, we were here for 63 minutes. Man, one of the longer shows of the year, that's for sure. But, yeah, Bristol was fun. I felt like not the best race, but, you know, it was okay. I didn't think it was great. Didn't think it was bad. Madera, that'll be a fun short track race. Hopefully Tyler Reif can keep the momentum going into Roseville and Kansas this weekend. Hopefully General Tire brings a good tire. Hopefully maybe we'll see a new oddball winner outside of the 18 and the 28. And hopefully our engine doesn't blow up on the 48. So, but anyway, guys, I seriously I seriously thank you all for the support. And like I said, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. I want to get to 2,000 subscribers before the season is over, especially with all the upcoming content I have for you guys. You guys might notice I've not been really making any videos lately, but trust me, I have some really, really cool stuff coming up that you guys are going to love. And if you want to see it, you got to be subscribed to the channel. This is some really, really cool stuff. A lot of money is being spent right now. I can't tell you what it is yet, but a lot of money has been spent. And I'm so excited to I'm so excited I can't speak right. I'm so excited to show you guys what it is in the coming weeks. But anyway, guys, like I say at the end of every podcast, because I eat dinner a little bit later than people, I'm going to go eat some dinner. You guys have a great rest of your Tuesday night. If you're in Kansas, again, come say hi. And if you're not in Kansas, watch Kansas. So we'll see you all on next week's show. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday night. I've been Colby Evans, starting Park Car, and I give you all the goodbye salute. I'll see you all next time. So long, guys.